Hey Carson, man, let me just say here, this is a very, very impressive golf swing. You are really, really close. Really, just there's not very much to change here. There's just some finessing in a couple of different areas that I think will potentially help you shallow the club out a little bit better, and also potentially hit the ball a little bit higher and just a little bit further. But from a structural standpoint, everything looks really, really good. Taking a look at the down the line here on the left first, I love this takeaway. I like how you've got the club head moving up through your hands. Club gets elevated. The shafts working a little bit more vertical right here, which I'm a big fan of. Wrist angles look really, really good here. Your left wrist is starting to move into flexion, and you start to put in a little bit of a bowing or arching piece right there, which gets that club, which starts the shallowing process. On the way down, this is where I think you have the potential to improve. I think that the left arm is a little too far out on the stance line right here, and I think relative to that left arm position, the shaft is still a little too steep. Again, I'm nitpicking here because I think you have a very, very good golf swing, but I do see an opportunity for a little bit of improvement. Ideally, at this point, I'd like to see the left arm a little bit more in this kind of ballpark right here. So if 90 degrees is your stance line, I'd like to see it somewhere about 10 to 15 degrees inside, maybe 20 degrees inside the stance line right here. So a little bit more depth to the left arm. Now, interesting, you can shallow the club in a multitude of ways, and how you're shallowing it is by moving your hands very much in an outward fashion toward the golf ball. Okay? So you have the most outward hand path, which is allowing the club to shallow a little bit in transition. But the right arm, in your case, could work a little bit better to help you shallow the club further. And I'll come back to that point in just a second. On the way through, right arm tends to straighten a little too fast. It's almost fully extended before impact. And as a result, you get a little bit of a sort of rolled release there. I'm not sure if you're hitting a cut shot in this. Looks like you're hitting a cut in this video. Again, pretty darn solid. Looking at face on here, again, takeaway looks really good. Big shoulder turn, big hip turn, nice pressure shift into this back leg. Nice squat and transition, very powerful looking position here. The only thing is, I would say that you don't use this. You don't use the move that you're making right here to its full benefit. The benefit for a player to unweight themselves and to squat into the ground like this is to create a huge ground reaction force, which means a big vertical push out of the ground in order to create speed. And you really don't use it very well. And what I mean by that is your left shoulder does not pull back up and around as fast as it should, and because of that we get just a little bit of that rolled release pattern right there. So you can see at this point in the golf swing, you're still very much bent over. The left shoulder should be retracted way more back, pulled back, and I'll come back to that in just one second. So first of all, back here on the shallowing piece, backswing is perfect. Let's not touch a thing there. Wrist angles in transition are perfect. Let's not touch a thing there. On the way down, it's in this phase of the golf swing right here. So I would say from about right here to about right here, where if you will make one little small adjustment, and that is really pressuring the elbow forward in the downswing. That's going to put your trail shoulder, your right shoulder, into more external rotation. What do I mean by pressuring the elbow forward? So if we look at a baseball pitcher here, Steven Strasburg. Nobody in the major leagues throws harder than this guy, over 100 and something miles an hour. Okay? I want you to watch. So I would equate this position right here, maybe right here, as the top of your backswing. Okay? But what I want you to do is I want you to watch how his elbow pressures forward, which means he leads the baseball. He leads with the elbow as he's delivering this pitch. Here it comes. Boom. So you can see how fast from that frame. And let me center him a little bit more on the screen. Sorry. So from that frame to that frame, look at how he's leading with the elbow. Okay, that's external rotation of the right shoulder. And that's where all his velocity is coming from. Okay, that external rotation in your golf swing is going to add velocity, but it's also going to shallow the shaft. And then here comes the right arm again. So back to you. Again, don't need to touch anything in the backswing. Everything there looks pretty darn solid. I'm going to zoom this in just a little tighter. So this phase in the backswing here. So from this point here to about this point here, I want your right elbow pressuring forward like you saw that baseball pitcher doing. So the more you can pressure the elbow forward, the more the shaft is going to pitch in this direction. So when your left arm is about parallel to the ground, just so you're clear on the alignments that we're looking for, your shaft should, at this point, let's just say the lead arm should be probably somewhere about here, and the shaft should probably be somewhere about here, mid bicep. So you don't have far to go. So this isn't a big change. It's just it's an important one because I think it's going to shallow your angle of attack. It's going to help you square the club face without having to try to flip it, and it's also going to add some velocity to the club. So the left arm will be slightly more in. That will be the shallowing piece. The shaft being a little bit flatter will also be a shallowing piece, but it's also going to be a speed piece. And the speed's going to allow you to hit the ball higher. So if we look at the video over here on the right, so I'm going to just give you an analogy here. So imagine that there's a brick wall right here. Okay? A buddy of mine kind of came up with this terminology. He would say, imagine that in the downswing, you're going to run up to the brick wall. So this would be the run up here. Boom. So the squat, the load, the pressure shift onto the left foot, that's the run up. Okay? So we're doing exactly what you're doing there. We want to run up to the brick wall, but then we want to pull back. Okay? And in pulling back, that means that we're pulling the left shoulder back, up, and around in a circle. And let me see if I can illustrate that. That needs to be bigger. Sorry. Well. Okay, so imagine your left shoulder is going to move rapidly back, up, and around. That's the pullback, okay? Now, as you're able to pull back with that left shoulder faster, this right arm is not going to straighten as fast. It's still going to be more bent at impact. The overtaking rate of the club head, so the club face closure is going to slow down, and you're also going to be shallower into the ball, and you're going to be able to hit the ball higher. So how do we do that? It's a combination of things. Number one, we create force out of the ground right here. So the left knee's going to straighten. You're going to push out of the ground with the ball of this left foot. The left knee's going to extend. The left hip is going to get higher, going to extend. Your pelvis is also going to push forward and up, and your left shoulder is going to be retracted and pulled back really hard around in a circle. Okay? These things will add so much velocity to the club, and it will also dramatically shallow your attack angle. Okay, here's an example of the last thing I just mentioned to you, the run up and pull back. And again, with, McElroy, if you want to envision the big brick wall, whatever you can, right here. Watch McElroy run up to the brick wall, boom, and now watch the pullback. So you can see how hard he's pulling that grip back up and around, and that left shoulder never stalls whatsoever. Left knee starts straightening right here. Left hip starts pushing up, and left shoulder starts pushing up. And notice the extension here in this phase of the golf swing. Let me get all this stuff off the screen because I want a comparison between you and him. So I'll stop at right arm parallel to the ground. Okay, so there's you guys are in pretty similar positions there. And if I keep going with him to there and you to there, you can see how you're still kind of flexed forward, still kind of bent forward there. And then even late into your finish, you can see how his pelvis is much more up and forward in this direction than yours. So hopefully this helps you. Again, just to simplify, from the down the line perspective again, I want you to pressure that elbow forward, just like you saw the baseball pitcher do. And I think that's going to help us flatten the shaft just a little bit. And again, don't touch anything in this backswing. I love it. It was from this phase in the downswing here to about right here is where you really need to feel like you're pressuring the inside part of that elbow forward. And you're going to want to feel and experience the shaft pitching just a little bit more in this direction. Okay? Hope this helps you. Call me if you have any questions.